Hey guys, Krisily Kennedy here with AMC Movie News here in our Studio A. I'm here to talk about a little movie coming out in theaters this Friday, March 28th, called Sabotage. And I have a very special guest with me, and I know you're going to be excited. Joe, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about this film because it was absolutely amazing and so much fun and intense, I think is the best word. So I have to start by asking you, you've had this great career with True Blood. I mean, going on your last season now, so taking on new projects, you kind of probably have to think about those a little bit. So what made you delve into Sabotage?
Well, I've been a huge fan of David Ayers. In fact, I screen tested for Training Day like 13 years ago, which David wrote, which was directed by Antoine Fuqua at the time. And Dr. Dre got the part that I screen tested for, so I just, I guess you can't get mad at Dre for that. But I just became a huge fan of his. That script was I just had a real visceral response to that script. And sometimes people talk about addicts chasing that first high, and it's almost like I've been reading scripts for the past 13 years trying to find something that made me have that type of response that I had to that script. So, David was on my radar from then, and once he started directing, I saw everything that he directed, saw all of his movies, and told my agents, I want to work with that guy. So they set up a meeting for me to sit down with him, and, we hit it off and talked about the script, Sabotage, and which was originally called Breacher and then called 10 and now called Sabotage. We work in the same way. I love acting because I get to immerse myself in another world, another reality, and I get to be a historian, a philosopher, a psychologist, and an athlete all in one. And that this script, I knew that David was going to give us access to the real guys who do it for a living, and that was something that was just incredibly attractive to me. And I wanted to go live in that world for a few months with those guys, and nothing could have prepared me for what I learned.
I'm so glad that you mentioned David, because something that you said about him that really spoke to me, because I am also a huge fan of his with End of Watch. I mean, still one of my favorite movies. But you said that he pays respect to the intelligence of the audience. And tell me why that's important to you as an actor.
Well, in today's world, people have access to the internet. I think technology has moved so quickly, and audiences have become very savvy, myself included. I don't really care for those, CGI all over the place movies. I mean, they look pretty and they're neat, but I don't have a visceral response unless I'm watching real people do real stunts and do real work. I think the other side of it too is that anybody can go on YouTube and they can watch a clip of a SWAT team, some sort of tactical team taking a building. You've seen it for real. You've seen the footage overseas, of our soldiers, in the Middle East and elsewhere. And so even though the audience at home doesn't technically know exactly what they're doing, they know what looks fake. So you really can't get away with faking an audience out anymore. And, that's why would you want to, is the question. And, when you meet these guys, you want to pay respect to them. You want to do justice to them. I don't really care what anybody else says about what I did in the movie. I care about what the guy who does it every day for a living cares about my performance. And David, gave us the opportunity to really, let the chain out and work with these guys and get crazy. I mean, these guys are heroes, and we all take them for granted. And so it's just out of respect, because nothing makes me more angry than when I'm watching a movie or a TV show and I see lazy actors doing sloppy gun handling. It's like I want to reach through the TV and choke them out, and which it might happen because we worked with martial artists as well, and worked on stand-up and ground fighting MMA, and I have a bit of a boxing background, and so I love that, and I'd love to just get on set and just beat the tar out of some of these lazy actors with their bad gun handling. I have a list of all of them in my head, and I just want to. So maybe I can wind up in another David Ayer movie with them, and we could all spar.
I love that you say that, because there is so many times where you're watching a movie or a television show and you see a scene and you're like, it wouldn't play out like that. The cop wouldn't walk in the room like that. You don't hold the gun that way. And I know that not only you took that very personally, but the whole group did. You worked with Mark and Jamie, who I got a chance to sit down and talk to, who have both worked SWAT, and they train, and you guys learned how to clear rooms. Tell me a little bit about the training with Mark and Jamie.
Well, we got to work with the best of the best. I describe Mark as the real life Jack Reacher. He flies around the world and trains these, military organizations around the world and local law enforcement agencies, the updated breaching and clearing and SWAT tactics. It's an amazing art and a science. There is a science to clearing rooms, but there also is this art form of rolling up on a building layout that you've never seen before. So you have to train people to free think and understand and solve problems in the moment, in a split second, without talking. And then you have to train the rest of the teammates to all be able to communicate with each other many times without speaking. So there's an energetic level that emerges from it. There's almost this magic where you can feel your teammates and know where they're moving and know that they're handling their responsibilities. It's really fascinating. And when you get into Jamie Fitzsimons, Jamie worked for 20 plus years in the field, and a lot of the events in End of Watch were based on experiences that he had. And so he was an incredible wealth of information. I remember sitting down one of the first times I talked to Jamie, and he looked me in the eye and said, "You think you could kill someone?" And that was his first question out of his mouth. So just to give you the level of hardcore of these guys,
So it was as intense off screen as it was on screen for you guys sometimes.
Yeah, it was really intense because you really learn how that world works, and I don't know, and people don't know, and it was the metaphor that I would choose to describe it would be taking the pill in the Matrix when you realize there's another world out there, and that's how that world works. And you mean a few miles over there from where I lay my head at night, there's a war going on, and these guys are fighting it, and I had no idea what they were going through, and I had no idea what the tactics the bad guys are using. Your eyes open up, and then you realize where the money goes, and these people have incredible power, and they're not sitting on top of it; they're using it. So these are like it's a global, this global enterprise. I mean, it really is something out of, I wouldn't say a James Bond film, because it's like way more evil than that. So the violence in the movie is not violence for the sake of violence; it's violence that is meant to educate the audience that evil does exist, and these things are going on. We're only really, getting into a bit of it in the time that we have with the movie, but some of the stuff I heard was just, I still can't get it out of my head.
I can imagine. And one of the other things I loved is this training. You guys all did this as a group. So you were in there with Terrence Howard and Sam. I mean, all of you guys did this as a group. It wasn't just on set as a group, which had to in turn help you guys on set as actors as well. Yes,
very much. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The fighting with each other and sparring with each other is that's a whole other side of it. But the training made us a team. I mean, we trained for 2 months solid before we even rolled camera, and then continued training. So once we shot those scenes as a team, there was a really cohesive feel to it, which then juxtaposes perfectly once the team fractures and we all split into these incredibly eclectic individuals. I mean, Sam and Terrence and Mireille and Max and Josh and me and Arnold. I mean, we're all very different people.
One motley crew.
Very motley crew, and so it really, I think, helps to tell the story, and I think it was, we really, benefited from all of that.
I want to talk about your character, Grinder.
Okay.
Because I loved Grinder, and I saw two very specific things that I loved about him, but I want to ask you first, because a lot of actors, they take on these roles and they really want to know the character and they find this backstory, but you took that even a step further. You had a very specific person that you were kind of modeling your character Grinder by, and you went as far as you made those tattoos yourself. You helped make that vest. Tell me about that process a little bit.
Well, I'd read a book that stuck with me a few years ago. It really impacted me. It was called No Angel, and it was about a guy who was a former college football player turned ATF agent, who then became a full-patched member of the Hells Angels in order to take them down, or try to take them down. And it really stuck with me, because I looked at him, and he was this big, thick-necked linebacker, scary-looking guy covered in tattoos, and you never would have thought in a million years that that guy was a cop. And I just always kind of logged that. And then in, you know, getting ready for the role, you know, you know, I love the research aspect of acting, and everything I do is meticulous, you know, and so, you know, his story in my mind, he was a former Marine, so who in my mind was thrown out for fighting, wound up working, you know, getting sucked into DEA, you know, when he came back home. So there are a couple of tattoos that signify, you know, Marines. There's one that has a USMC on the top of a skull and then a bunch of animal skulls underneath it. There's another one that's kind of a takeoff that one of David's friends actually designed. That's, you know, the Marine symbol is the eagle on top of the world, and you know, the eagle is. There's a nuclear cloud coming out of the top of the Earth into the eagle that has burned its feathers off, and it's this skeleton holding the Earth as the Earth kind of melts down into this diaper holding a baby Jesus. So there's that. I saw my character as a bit of like a rattlesnake into these strikes. If you see that scene with Arnold and I, you know, there's like I get up out of this chair and strike the way that in my mind a rattlesnake would. So I had a rattlesnake skeleton going down my hand, arm into my hand, and then I have an arrow that goes down over my elbow on my shooting arm, and he's part Native American, so he has a skull with a headdress on this arm, and then there's a scorpion on my neck, which is the Native American totem animal for protection and the loner animal, which is my character. And then there's a feather that comes out of my head into my chest, which you can't really see because I'm wearing my vest all the time in the movie. But so yeah, it was all very, very, you know, thought out, planned out. You know, it all meant something to me.
And I appreciate that, because that was one of the things I loved about your character. Was I felt like when I looked at him, I saw, and a little bit different than the other characters, when I looked at him, I saw somebody who, if he wasn't doing this, he'd be dead or in jail.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Those were the only two other options for him.
I mean, the other option in the movie is to kill everybody in the team and take off for South America and just bodyguard or something. You know, that's how I saw him. You know?
But he was also the one that, when Arnold's character wasn't around, was kind of holding the team together at some aspects as well, which I liked.
Well, you know, when you're 6'5", 250 pounds, people tend to listen to you.
Just a little
and
bit.
you have cornrows and a giant beard. Yeah,
it was the
cornrows.
tats. They were the scariest part.
Yeah, tattoos mean I'm the boss.
That's right.
Yeah.
You mentioned Arnold. Tell me about working with him, because I know that he's been someone that you've kind of looked up to in many ways for a long time. So what was it like, kind of the first day meeting him and then going on set with him and working with him?
Well, you know, Arnold is an icon, and I'm not throwing that word around. There are only a handful of icons that I see it for my generation. You know, the generation before, you know, you got Elvis and you got Frank, you got, you know, that kind of stuff. But for mine, you're talking Michael Jordan, you're talking Michael Jackson, you're talking Madonna, you're talking Arnold. You know, I've never met a more charismatic person in my life, and he might be the most intelligent person I've ever met in my life. You know, philanthropic, political, you know, just world-reaching. I don't know anybody else that I can think of that's had as much. Well, I mean, maybe there's, but you know, you would be hard pressed to find somebody who has more influence over the world than that guy does. With that said, I had his poster on my wall as a kid with all the other Mr. Olympias, and I saw every single one of his movies, could quote them backwards and forwards. He was the reason I picked up a weight in the first place, ever started bodybuilding. He was the reason I ever dreamed of maybe someday becoming an action hero, you know, be in an action movie. So to meet him, yeah, it was like in the Terminator when the landlord comes in and he turns and, you know, all the different responses. I mean, basically my brain was like, don't be an idiot. Don't do something stupid. Like, that was basically all of my choices. You know, but he couldn't be a better friend. I mean, he's been there to support me, whether it's writing the foreword for my bodybuilding book or showing up to an event, or, you know, I directed and financed the movie and he came to an early screening of it just to see it and be supportive. And it's, you know, we travel around on the jet, and we've driven 28,000-pound military vehicles together and smoked cigars, and it's just he's the best. He's just he's all that and more. A lot of times you meet celebrities and you're like, ugh, you're like that, man. And you want to build a time machine and take those posters down off your wall. But Arnold's, he makes you wish he could go back in time and put up more. I mean, he really is all that.
I hear you do a mean Arnold impression.
Don't bullshit me. With this fucking tie business. What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils?
That is my favorite ever. I love it. Thank you. And so I have to finally...
You like discipline. Who is your daddy and what does he do? Who are you?
You have made my day. Completely
Stop
made my
it.
day.
All right, cool.
2 interviews in one. I'm done. All right, so I have to finally ask, why will AMC Theater audiences love Sabotage?
Sabotage is the most badass action movie to have been made in recent memory. I can't think of a movie that is more badass, more adrenaline fueled. There is a phenomenal cast of actors. I mean, everybody, front to back in that movie is, A+. And everybody has their moments. So it's this action movie, but there's acting going on, and there's these pockets where people get to show their thing. Aside from that, I think it's a great date movie. Because there's a lot of gore and there's a lot of blood. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of eye candy. I mean, you get your little Josh Holloway going on, and Arnold. You get a little something for Terrence. You get something for everybody.
Everyone.
So girls, okay, great. You like that, and but aside from that, I mean, guys, take your dates, and your girl's gonna be jumping out of her seat, man. Like, ooh, she's gonna have to grab onto your arm and hold on tight. So it gives the guys a good chance to be the macho guy. Hey, I wasn't scared at that. That was cool. So I think it appeals to everyone. And aside from that, it's an Arnold movie. So every Arnold fan, this is a return to Arnold's form, and I'm talking like Conan the Barbarian, Terminator, those really dark, indie, gritty, hardcore action movies he did at the beginning. It's a real return to that, and it's David Ayer. So with David Ayer, you're going to get quality. You're going to get as close to real police work as you can get. So, I mean, if that's not enough to go see it, I don't know what is.
And you, the best grinder ever.
Oh, Diane, some cornrows.
And some cornrows.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news, and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.